All right, we're going to talk about the sympathetic nervous system. What is another name for the sympathetic nervous system? It is also called fight or flight. The next question, when do we use the sympathetic nervous system? The S helps you remember. During times of stress. Now, there's another thing that we're going to say about the sympathetic nervous system. It is part of the ANS, but it is going to be also known as the thoracolumbar division of the ANS. This is new. The thoracolumbar division. Now, we learned in the previous video that we're going to have preganglionic neurons and postganglionic neurons. The names of the ganglia is autonomic ganglia. However, when we talk about the thoracic and lumbar region, we know that this is the cervical region, the cervical enlargement, thoracic region. There should be a lumbar enlargement right there. And then the conus medullaris. So when we say that the sympathetic nervous system is in the thoracolumbar division, we're going to say that the neurons are going to arise from the thoracic region of the spinal cord, and then the lumbar enlargement of the spinal cord, which we'll draw that out here in a second. Actually, let's just do it now. All right, so spinal cord. Where it exits is the foramen magnum. Cervical region, cervical enlargement. Thoracic region, I'm going to draw it long, lumbar enlargement, and then the conus medullaris. So, we know that this is the thoracic region of the spinal cord. This is where it's going to rise, and this is the lumbar enlargement. Of the spinal cord. So when you say that it is a thoracolumbar division, all of the preganglionic neurons are going to be in the thoracic and lumbar spinal cord. These are preganglionic neurons. Preganglionic neurons. These are very short. Now there's more than this, but this is all I'm drawing. So when we say thoracolumbar division, the preganglionic neurons are in the thoracic and lumbar spinal cord. Now, all of these are going to go to the autonomic ganglia. So you could draw those for each. Autonomic ganglia. So what they do call these is the sympathetic chain ganglion, because there's a chain of them. Now, they are autonomic ganglia, but we typically give these, we call them the sympathetic because they're in the thoracolumbar division. Chain ganglion. And then you have your cell bodies that are in the sympathetic chain ganglia for your postsynaptic cells, which are going to go a little bit longer, different distance to their target cells. So that's why we call the sympathetic region fight or flight, the thoracolumbar division. And these are going to go all to their target cells. Now, what's very different about the sympathetic nervous system versus the parasympathetic is the length of the preganglion neurons. So, your preganglionic neurons, the cell body, starts in the thoracolumbar division. It's very short. This is your preganglionic neuron, the first one. And then your second one, which is in the sympathetic chain ganglia, is very long, and it goes to its target cell. Now, the next thing is the neurotransmitters that these produce are different. The neurotransmitter that comes from the first sympathetic chain ganglion, or preganglionic neuron, is acetylcholine. This is how it activates the second one. So we learned neurotransmitters, acetylcholine, when we learned the muscular system. So your first preganglionic neuron is going to release the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. The second one is going to release what we call adrenaline. So think about it, fight or flight. What happens to your heart when you see a spider or a scary clown and you get freaked out? Your heart rate goes up. So the neurotransmitter that we produce is called epinephrine and norepinephrine, which is also known as adrenaline. So during fight or flight, your heart is going to start to increase. Your blood pressure goes up. This is fight or flight. So norepinephrine and epinephrine are known as adrenaline. So we say epi and norepi, which stands for epinephrine and norepinephrine. Norepinephrine literally just means not epinephrine, but this is going to be adrenaline. When you're stressed out, these are the neurotransmitters that are going to go to your target cell that makes your heart beat really fast. So when we talk about what happens during the sympathetic nervous system, you have adrenaline, which is going to your heart. So adrenaline makes your heart rate go up. It also goes to your eyes. Your eyes have smooth muscles in it. So one of the things that we say for sympathetic nervous system is freeze. We always say freeze is a deer, so deer in headlights. What does someone's eyes look like when they're stressed? Their pupils dilate. It also is going to go to their blood vessels. So we have to think of all the locations that it goes to. Your heart, your lungs, your sweat glands. We sweat. So we can do a list for the sympathetic nervous system and basically talk about how adrenaline is going to affect you when you see a tiger or a bear or a scary clown. So, S for stress. Times of stress. Fight or flight. So, a hungry tiger is chasing you. An evil clown is out to get you. A spider. A scorpion runs across your leg. A snake, a rattlesnake, is sitting at the front of your doorstep. You are stressed out, so you're going to produce adrenaline, which is going to go to your heart and your lungs. So we're going to do a chart. Sympathetic nervous system. Fight or flight. S for stress. So when we talk about stress, S for stress, we can go through and talk about what's going on in your body when you produce adrenaline, when you're scared. So the first thing that we're going to say with the sympathetic nervous system, when we talk about the eyes, is your pupils. The pupil is the black portion of your eye. So the pupils are going to dilate. When we look at your pupil, here's a picture of your eye. The pupil gets really big. That's a dilated pupil. Now around your pupil is your your iris, which is the colorful portion of your eye. Here, that's the eye. Your eyes are going to dilate. So when I talk about the eyes dilating, you want to be able to see so that you can run from that tiger. So the pupil dilates so you can basically have better vision. Okay, your heart rate. You have increased heart rate. Again, you're producing adrenaline. You're scared of that evil clown that's chasing you. Wrinkles the Clown or whatever it is that they have on Netflix. You have increased heart rate. Now, your sweat glands. You increase the amount that you're sweating. Increased sweat gland production. You're sweating because you're scared. When you're nervous about going on an interview, your hands will sweat. Now, in your lungs, we say that you have bronchodilation. Bronchi are the basically connected to your windpipes. When you get bronchitis, it's the lungs. Bronchi dilation. Bronchodilation means that it gets big. So you need to get more breathing, more air, because you might be fighting for your life if it's a bear, or running for your life if a hungry tiger is chasing you. So you need to dilate. So this is constriction. Dilation means to increase the diameter of your bronchi. So when we talk about your bronchi, this is going to be your trachea. Your trachea is your windpipe. And then it's going to split. And that's your bronchi. Your bronchi have to dilate. They have to be large so that you can run and get increased air to your lungs. So you increase your breathing rate. Bronchodilation means to make the diameter of the bronchi large. So that's the large diameter. Dilation. Pupil dilation. The pupil is the black portion that gets really large. So your pupil is increasing in size. It's dilating. Now, because you're running from that bear, we need to have increased glucose secretion from your liver. So you have energy. Energy comes in the form of glucose to feed your muscles while you run, basically, or you fight for your life. However, you're gonna stop digestion. You should not be trying to use any of your digestive organs because you're running for your life. You're also going to stop urinary processes. You should not be saying, "Stop, tiger, I've got to pee." We don't need it. Now, the last thing that we need to talk about is your blood vessels. So if you have increased sugar production because you need to feed your muscles while you run. So when we say glucose, that's sugar. You have to feed your muscles while you run or fight. Then we need to control the blood vessels that go to the muscles. So we're going to, vaso means vessel. So we're going to vasodilate muscles, or blood vessels. Vaso means vessel. We're going to vasodilate blood vessels to skeletal muscle. Why skeletal muscle? Because you are running for your life. So vaso means blood vessel, dilate means to get large. We have smooth muscle inside of your blood vessels that are going to dilate. So now you're talking about the smooth muscle. But since we are going to stop anything going to the digestive and urinary system, we are going to vasoconstrict. That means get tiny. Let me move this up just a hair. Vasoconstrict means you're going to contract your blood vessels to digestive and urinary organs, because we don't need extra blood. We need extra blood to run for your life. More blood for fight or flight, to run for your life. We stop digestion, we stop urinary. So everything that is in rest and digest is really opposite. So we should just go ahead and write this chart. So, parasympathetic. Nervous system is called rest and digest. So this is during times of relaxation. Now, one way that you can remember parasympathetic nervous system is SLUD. That's one good way to remember parasympathetic nervous system. Salivation, because you're eating a pear. Lacrimation, you can increase your tears. Remember your lacrimal gland. Urination, because you're resting and digesting. Digestion, defecation, slud. Now we can do everything opposite. Now the first thing is your pupils. If you're resting, you don't need to see very far. So your pupil is going to constrict. Constriction means that they get smaller. So literally, your pupil is tiny because you're trying to rest. Here is your iris. Your pupils constrict. So always remember constriction, dilation, constriction, dilation. So your pupils dilate in fight or flight because you're running from a bear. You need to see. Pupils constrict when you're resting because you don't need to see. So decrease heart rate because you're resting. You start to breathe slower. You're not sweating. Now we can talk about the lungs. For the lungs, you're resting. You're not running for your life. So we say bronchoconstriction. You decrease. Oh, that's not supposed to be on there. You decrease your breathing rate. You're resting. You don't need glucose. You don't need to feed the muscles. So you are going to do decrease glucose production. You're digesting your food. You're going to be storing glucose as glycogen in the liver for later uses. Now, we already know from SLUD, urination, digestion, defecation's to poop, lacrimation is to produce tears, salivation's to produce saliva. So it's rest and digest. Yes, you're going to digest. Yes, you're going to urinate. Yes, you're going to defecate. So we're going to increase glands secretion in the digestive system so that we can break down our food. Now, since we are talking about the digestive system, you're going to vasodilate, vessel, dilate means to get large, blood vessels to the digestive muscles or digestive system. So we need to increase dilation to your small intestines, to your large intestines, because we're in rest and digest. But because you're not moving, you're resting, you're going to vasoconstrict. Constriction means to get small. Blood vessels to skeletal muscles. You're not moving. You're relaxing. So in these names, rest and digest, you can figure out what's going on if you just understand why either one of these systems would be on. So this is a good comparison. There's going to be some questions where it's going to ask you what's going on with the body. We'll say fight or flight, rest and digest. Now, this system controls the respiratory system, the cardiovascular system, the digestive system, the urinary system. So anatomy 2, we're going to always be coming back to the ANS. This is what's going to guide you on how you know what's going on with all the other systems of the body. So, the parasympathetic nervous system. What is it also known as? rest, and digest. So what's happening when you're resting to your pupils? Okay, now on the sympathetic we said it was the thoracolumbar division of the ANS. This one is going to be the craniosacral division of the ANS. So this is something that we're adding. Now, something that's special with the parasympathetic nervous system is the preganglionic neurons are in the brainstem for cranial nerves, cranio for cranial nerves, and the sacral portion, which is closer towards the end, spinal cord. Now, something that's interesting to me, and maybe you can think about it like this, is it's craniosacral. Well, parasympathetic, the first thing you always say is slud. Salivation is controlled by cranial nerves. Lacrimation, tears, is controlled by cranial nerves. Urination, defecation, and digestion all occur in or around your sacrum and your pelvis. So the nerves, the preganglionic and the postganglionic neurons, have to be pretty close to the head so you can salivate, lacrimate. It also has to be pretty close to the where we poop and pee, defecation and urination. So when we talk about the craniosacral, basically you would draw the same spinal cord. Now, technically, this is the spinal cord. Some of it comes off before it ever exits. So this is the cervical region, the cervical enlargement, the thoracic region, the thoracic enlargement, and then you have this conus medullaris. So your preganglionic neurons are going to come off in the cranial aspect for cranial nerves, way up here. And they're going to have to go out to the head and neck. Now you can see that their preganglionic neurons are a little longer than they were in the sympathetic nervous system. However, they still have ganglia. I'm not going to make you learn all the special names of the ganglia that are going to be here because these all have special names. I'm not going to require you to learn those. But just understand that they still have pre and post ganglionic neurons. The postganglionic neuron, the axon is going to be very short. It goes directly to that target organ. So it's called craniosacral. So we have cranial, and way down here at the bottom, sacral. Cranial sacral region. Again, these do have special names for the ganglion. Just know that they're autonomic ganglion. They do have special names if you're reading the textbook, like genticulate. I'm not making you learn those. What I do want you to understand with the autonomic nervous system is the first neuron is the preganglionic neuron, which arrives from the cranium, the brainstem. And then the second one is going to go directly to its target cells. And the target cells are going to be the cells that we talked about in the lungs and the heart, which are going to be these, the pupils. This is all your target cells. Now, when we compare the preganglionic and the postganglionic of the sympathetic, the preganglionic are short and the postganglionic are long. These originate in the thoracic lumbar region. These are cranial sacral. So if we say cranial, then we need to know the cranial nerves involved. So we're still on the parasympathetic nervous system. These are going to be really long. Then you're going to have a super short one that goes to its target cells. All right, for the autonomic nervous system, these are going to be cranial nerves. Now, they're also going to come from the sacral region. So, your preganglionic neuron is cranial nerves, 3, which you should be able to give me their names, oculomotor, 7, facial, and I might say, what is your facial nerve innervate? Well, it'd be lacrimal glands. Your pharynx, which controls most of your salivary glands, or at least the largest one. And cranial nerve 10, which is vagus, which controls all of your heart, your viscera of your abdomen. So, each one of these cranial nerves are involved with the parasympathetic nervous system. You should know their names. You should know how to write out the chart. Now, cranial nerve 10, which is vagus, is going to control 90% of the parasympathetic nervous system. 90% of the parasympathetic nervous system, mostly because the vagus is going to go to the heart, the lungs, all the viscera, and this one branches out, cranial nerve branches, and what's a branching network of, oh, I didn't need that one. What's a branching network of nerves? A plexus. So cranial nerve 10, which is vagus, is going to branch and it's going to form what we call the cardiac plexus, which is going to go to your heart. It's going to go to the pulmonary plexus, which controls your lungs. But it's also going to go to your throat, which we're going to call the esophageal plexus for swallowing. So cranial nerve 9 branches. The cardiac plexus is going to control your heart. The pulmonary, the word pulmones in Espanol means lungs. It's going to control your lungs. And the esophageal plexus is basically your digestive system, so you can swallow. I shouldn't have a fourth one out here, so basically you can take this one off. So, all right, now the neurotransmitters produced with these. The first neurotransmitter that is produced, just like sympathetic nervous system, is going to be ACH, acetylcholine. Again, that's a neurotransmitter. Now, all the different names of the ganglia, they have different names. These are going to be very close to the target cell. So instead of giving you their physical names, we're going to say terminal ganglia. Terminal means close to the target cells. This is your terminal ganglia. Now, there's different neurotransmitters, but your second one also produces ACH. That is different because sympathetic nervous system produced adrenaline, epinephrine, or norepinephrine. These do have different names. I will not make you learn all the different names for the terminal ganglia. For the autonomic nervous system, the autonomic ganglia is the sympathetic chain ganglion. That's what we call the sympathetic nervous system. So you really need to go through and understand the differences between them. We know the differences because of their names. Rest and digest. Fight and flight. But now we can also think about where they're at. The sympathetic nervous system is close to the heart and lungs because during fight or flight time, you need to be able to run really fast to get away from that tiger. So your heart needs to be able to kick on really fast and give yourself some adrenaline so you can run from that tiger. Now, the parasympathetic nervous system is rest and digest, which we said is SLUD. Salivation is controlled by cranial nerve 9 primarily. Lacrimation is primarily controlled by cranial nerve 7. Urinary, digestion, and defecation are going to be closer to the sacral end because that's where you urinate and defecate, which is basically pee and poop. So it really makes sense when you think of it in terms of their names where their preganglionic neurons would arise.